Hello folks, Off-Grid Bo here, and today I want to talk about how to build a cabin dirt cheap. And if you have a bunch of money to throw at a cabin, this video is probably not for you. You might want to click off. But we're talking thrifty and cheap, guys. Let's go. You know, a common thing said to me all the time is, I would love to have an off-grid cabin, but my finances just wouldn't allow it. Another thing said to me all the time is, I'd love to have an off-grid cabin, but I don't think I have the capabilities or the knowledge to be able to build one. The reason I wanted to make this video is to put a lot of minds to ease. Now I know a lot of people that watch this channel, they've already have a similar setup like this or even better. And for those people, this video probably isn't for you. But for those who always dreamed about doing something like this, having this even like as a part-time reality or full-time reality, yeah, I'm here to help, guys, and that's why I'm making this. So in regards to not having the knowledge or capability of building a cabin like this, let me assure you, when I came out here in 2017 and started building this cabin, I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm still learning, and learning a lot. But I figured it was worth a shot. And if you go back to some of my first videos on this channel, it's kind of hilarious. I was just this younger, pudgier version. This cabin helped me get in shape, I'll tell you that. This younger, pudgier version out here rambling on, making terrible YouTube videos, and not knowing what I was doing at all out here. You know, most of the information I got from doing this cabin was hands-on work. I will credit a lot of it to watching YouTube videos and looking at a couple different books, but where you learn the most is when you get your hands on it and you start making mistakes. Mistakes is what taught me so much. And a lot of people will look at a cabin like this and they'll say, well, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, and you know what, they're probably right. They're probably right. But I came out here, I did it, I got my cabin, and I love it, and I wouldn't change it for the world, and I feel like you would feel the same way as well. As far as being able to afford a cabin, I can assure you again, when I came out here in 2017, I had little to no money. I didn't have a nest egg. I worked a 9 to 5, and it paid the bills. So let me give you a little bit of advice for those who are concerned about that aspect of it. Do not, and I repeat, do not go on realtor sites and sites like Zillow and stuff like that. Things are generally very marked up. Realtors got to make their cuts, etc. So my advice to you would be, number one, ask around. You'd be surprised how many people, in a rural community that would have a lot of acreage that they would be willing to sell. They might be strapped for money themselves. Also check, like Facebook groups. There's a lot of them out there. And people are just trying to get rid of things quick. They don't want to go through the whole process. And that's another really good way of doing it, and you will save a ton of money. And also another thing is, you don't necessarily have to have a ton of acreage to have something like this. It just depends on what you want. And another thing you could also do is you could find a small lot of land that's surrounded by state forest as well. So you would have all that land to utilize and play in and do what you want to do, and you don't need to own it. Now this may be some pretty common sense stuff here, but I'm going to say it anyways. There's obviously some significant cuts in cost if you decide to build a log cabin. You're not paying for the amount of plywood and 2x6s or 2x8s, joists. You're cutting so much of that down by using the logs from the land. This has nothing to do with cost or knowledge of building or anything, but one thing I would like to throw in there is, when I came out here, one of my concerns was I didn't want to come in here and just clear cut, and I didn't want to kill a bunch of trees. And so what I did was, I would say probably 90% of this cabin is built with dead standing trees, and 100% of my firewood is dead standing trees. I do think there's a way to go about it where it doesn't really affect the nature around you too drastically. And that was definitely a concern of mine. Occasionally, depending on your location, how many dead standing trees you have, how far away they are, what you have to move them, all that stuff really plays a factor, and you might have to use living trees more or less, but I just try to be responsible in that aspect of things and do it in a way that didn't disturb the beautiful woods around me. And if you do decide to use some dead standing trees in your project, just make sure that it's not dead rotten. It's just dead standing, nice and dry. You don't want to be putting up rotten logs on your cabin. That won't last very long. Now, another thing I did was go around and plant and transplant trees. And I put in more than actually what was here. In regards to cost as well, be thrifty. I have maybe a few dollars worth of screws and nails in this cabin. Literally a few dollars. Let me give you an example right now. $10. All these, this whole container of screws and nails here. All right, so picking up all those nails and screws, and look at this. If you guys saw in my video, my lampshade is a wreck, so found this nice little camel lampshade here. What is this? $5. Getting all those. Told me I can have all these nails and screws for $5. Guys, get thrifty. There's so many places you can go to get things insanely cheap. So not just like screws and nails. I mean, most of the tools that I use for building this cabin, I got in similar places, and you just walk in and you just see a whole toolbox full of hammers and screwdrivers and, you know, $5–10. I mean, there's places like that everywhere. So you don't need to go to the store and buy a $25 hammer. I mean, if you want to, more power to you. But this video is about doing it cheap. Another thing to keep an eye out for is usually once a year, most towns and cities will have what they call like a village or city dump day. So it's all the stuff that they have laying around that they want to throw away, they want to get rid of it. And it's not stuff that they can just put in the garbage, you know. So it's going to be bigger items and like shelving and cabinets and just scrap wood. And so when you find out when those days are, and just take a stroll around. They're not going to have a problem with you picking up their trash, I promise. This couch was free on the side of the road. I had no legs on it. Log worked just fine. Actually, it looks pretty good. Years later, guys, still using the same wood stove. Still has the free label on it on the side of the road. As you guys saw in my last video here, getting a little thrifty. $1.99 for the chairs. The sink, an old pan I had laying around. As far as power tools go, sure, you could get a table saw, skill saw. You can use all that, which is great and a better option in a lot of cases. But for me personally, I did this whole cabin with just a chainsaw, a drill, and a hammer. The only time I really used a drill was putting the tin roof on, because it requires a particular type of screw, has the washers on it to seal it up. Other than that, though, everything else has been done with a hammer, some nails, and almost all my cuts on everything. Honestly, it's just been a chainsaw. My biggest expense of this entire cabin, as far as the actual structure itself, was the mortar for the chinking in between the logs. And because I built this way, it wasn't a really well scribed cabin. It was more like pioneer style. I had some decent gaps in between the logs, and that required a lot of mortar. So my original cost of the cabin, like I've said in other videos, was right around $300, and I would say probably 75% of that was just the mortar alone. The rest was the plywood for the roof, which I got an insane deal on. Just took my time and waited for the right moment, I guess. But yeah, it was definitely the mortar was the most expensive part. After the actual structure was built, if I had to guesstimate with everything, you know, adding little things and even being thrifty, solar panels, I would say there's probably about $700 total into this cabin at the moment. And that's just great. Speaking of solar, this is really going to depend on the individual. I literally just got the Harbor Freight 100-watt solar setup. It was the whole kit, had everything. I did have to buy a couple batteries separately, and 100 watts is not a lot. It's really not a lot of wattage. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, all I use it for is lights, charging my phone, charging the laptop. Really, I got a little Bose speaker that I use out here all the time that I charge up with it. So if I want some music while I'm working. But as far as just those simple things like that, I'm telling you, that little 100-watt setup with two good batteries, I've never had an issue. It's always been plenty of juice. Now, depending, like I said, on what you plan on doing out here, you're going to be out here watching TV all the time, and you want Wi-Fi in your cabin, and you know, you're going to want a bigger setup. But this cheap little $200 setup has done me just fine. This is what comes with a typical cheap solar setup. I got my panel here that tells me what my wattage is and my battery life, all that. And my inverters for the bigger appliances has 2 ports on it right here. And when you want to use it, you hit the button, and when you don't, turn it off. And it's that simple. Very, very easy to set up. Now you know you had a good night when there's beer next to the pooper. For inside cooking, a cheap little homemade propane stove. In the colder temperatures, the wood stove works much better. Outside cooking, antique wood stove on the side of the road. Another big thing I did to cut down on a lot of cost is the materials that I actually did have to buy. The scraps, I reused them. And as you can see, some leftover 2x4s I had. I used from just some shelving. And my door, like you guys see all the time, it's a 2x4 door. These were scrap pieces that I didn't either use or weren't the right size, and I utilized them and built my door out of it. Believe it or not, this tiny, tiny little room that I built just to put a bed out of the main structure cost more money than the whole cabin did. Also, save your back and get a sled. Yeah, so every year or two, I kind of regurgitate this video. And the reason I do that is because I get a lot of new people onto the channel, and they're asking me these questions. And so for those of you that have been on this page for years, I apologize if it sounds a little redundant. But again, that's why I do it, for the new people, to answer their questions in one video. And if you have any more questions, guys, feel free to ask in the comments below, and I would be glad to answer them for you. But anyways, have a wonderful and blessed day. This is Off Grid Bo. Bye, guys. I hope this helped.